There we go. Hi, welcome everybody. This is Sasha from Sexpert Talks, and I am so happy to welcome today Aaron Kleinerman, who is a transformational sex and relationships coach. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here with you.
So I am so happy because he said yes without knowing me. Most of the coaches that I have interviewed have been my friends, my mentors, my colleagues. So I just dared and went for it. I was like, I like his vibe, I like his work. I'll just go for it. And he said yes. So,
I love what you're creating, and I love the platform that's supporting men and women to come more authentically into their body, into their sexuality.
Thank you. And it's so important right now, more than ever. So I have the pleasure of knowing women that work with men, but I have received a lot and more often every time this comment of, hey, I want to hear about sexuality from other men. What is it that men have to say about male sexuality? So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you to this platform. And I am so curious about how men approach you. What is it that they are looking for when they contact you?
Well, it's a great question. I think what I've noticed through the years is, especially when I was first teaching and speaking in this realm, a lot of time the men would only reach out to me after coming to a workshop with their beloved and being like, maybe you could give me a couple tips or feedback, just to be a better lover, to be better in the bedroom. And my background is in personal development. I was working and teaching from stage and helping people with their mindset and consciousness work. And it wasn't really till I got into the field of Contra and really understanding the sexuality component as well, that I started to see where most of the fear and the worry and the shame exist, and especially for male bodies. So men often find me from, just kind of reaching out and saying, hey, I'm a little curious. But there's a big hesitation with men because men, their egos are strong and they're like, I'm good. I'm a good lover. I don't need any support, whether it's erectile dysfunction or whether it's some part of them that they're not necessarily, stepping into fully in their life. There's a place where men are a little bit, worried or don't know how to approach it. So when they do, I like open my arms and heart and say, wow, thank you so much for reaching out, because you're in the 5% that are willing to face the fact that they might need a little bit more support. And what I find most often than anything is that men's challenges actually isn't necessarily with their sexual body, it's with their emotional body. A man's capacity to feel deeply, to feel completely, and express what's under the surface isn't really something society offers a lot of. As young boys, we're said, not allowed to cry, don't cry, this isn't allowed, stop doing that, etc., etc. So the place of men more deeply expressing their sexual nature is a place where sometimes they're afraid and there's fear. So what I support men to do is to get more in touch with their feeling body, the part of them that allows their body to feel deeply and completely. And that opens up a whole other pathway to connect the sex and spirit, to connect the mind and sex. And so all of these centers in the body come more online, and they can actually be more free in society.
Thank you for mentioning that. That's so important because, well, first of all, I have seen that firsthand as well. That reaction of men, like, oh my God, I know how to do things. Like, I'm the best lover ever. It's like, please take the chance to explore. And then when they do that, they find exactly what you just described. That the most important part was always about their emotion, the connection with their vulnerability, how relevant it is. And the beautiful part is that they start discovering more about themselves, and in that they create better relationships with their partners.
And the thing is, it's like there's such a stubbornness in so many men to actually like sit down and discover more about themselves. And what I find 99% of the time is they're wanting actually a woman to support them in that way because they don't have enough connection in their own inner woman. And really the journey I support a lot of men in their life is getting more in touch with this inner vulnerability, this inner tenderness. And the fear, like I come from a government military background. Like when I'm working with men, I can speak to those men. I can also speak to the spiritual hippy-dippy, lost in the clouds men. Like, I'm sure you know both sides of that spectrum. And the place where men are willing to be vulnerable and they're willing to say, hey, I need some more support. I need, something's not working right here. Like what I say to all the women listeners, if a man shows you his vulnerability, do not condemn that vulnerability, celebrate it. Because often when a man finally gets vulnerable, then the woman's like, oh, what happened to the presence? What happened to the Shiva? I need you back. And then the woman inside the man's like, oh my God, I'm never doing that again. That was a nightmare. And so she goes back, like imagine there's this like inner feminine in a man, and she goes back into the cupboard that she's been hiding in for the last 20, 30, 40 years and never wants to come out again. So when a man's vulnerability is seen, celebrate it, let it come out, let it be seen. It's beautiful. And he's not going, it might feel a little bit awkward, it might feel a little bit weird because he's not used to expressing and emoting in that way. And it's just like, oh, beautiful, brother, I'm here with you, I hold you, thank you.
One of the most beautiful things to witness is the heart of man when they are able to open it. It's so rich in color and so huge. I think that is one of the biggest gifts of men, and they don't even know that. It's their beautiful, gentle, loving heart.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the thing is, a lot of men are afraid of being vulnerable because they think they're going to get lost in the vulnerability and are never going to come back to their presence and their strength. And I remember that fear strong in myself. Like when I really started to get into these practices, I was like a little bit afraid. I was tentative. I didn't know, what would happen or what wouldn't happen. So I gave myself just permission to go there. And the deeper I went into my vulnerability, the stronger, the more clear, the more vibrant, the more on par my masculine became. It was like this frequency got larger, and I got deeper into my femininity and my receptivity, and then I got more clear, more strong, more like directive, penetrative, and all parts of me were like, wow, this is what it feels like to be more on purpose and more fire in my body, and not feel like I'm ashamed of that penetrative power because I know how to penetrate within myself, and I have this inner union that's dancing inside of it all.
Just as you're speaking, I can feel like my whole self vibrating with such excitement. And I really want to reflect that because I know that one of the biggest fears of men in becoming vulnerable is that women might reject them. But in reality, it can be so exciting, so beautiful, and so delightful to be able to witness this. But I know there is fear because there are many women that have been conditioned to reject that as well.
Of course, because a lot of and this is, I see what happens in a lot of relationships. Like my partner and I we do couples immersions, we do one-on-one counseling with people. In relationship, the area of most problem, the most friction is in the contrasexual relationship. That means the masculine in the feminine, in like the woman, and the feminine essence in the man. And often if you look at that, it's usually like 11-year-old and a 12-year-old trying to relate to one another. They might be in a 40-year-old or 50-year-old body, but that's the development stage of that contrasexual part. And so when the man goes into his femininity, he's then relating to the masculine essence in the woman that might not be very developed. So she needs to learn how to grow her capacity to hold presence, to be the witness, to observe without judgment. And so many women are only used to going into chaos and everything, which is beautiful. We love Shakti. We love the way she expresses, and she's unpredictable and everything else. But a man, really, what I know I need in a relationship, I'm generally 80-90% of the time, I'm holding the masculine pole. But there are times when I just want my partner to hold me and not judge me for holding me, and just say, I love you, I got you, it's okay. And that might happen like 5% of the time, but in that 5%, my inner feminine is like, yeah, she's so excited, and she's like, I can be held too. I don't always have to be the one holding. And that is such a vital piece inside of the relationship dynamic for men and women.
It is. And thank you for bringing that up, because that balance is so important. And you mentioned how it's like dealing with 12 and 11-year-old parts. So how immature these aspects of ourselves are, because we have kept them in the shadow.
Exactly. And they want to come out because they generally want to express, but when they don't have a framework or a time or an energy to express, then they come out in the shadow, and they come out as vindictive, they come out as manipulative, they come out in ways that are just trying to not feel the pain and the frustration that's usually sitting as emotional turmoil from the past. And so the thing I love about this work is that we dive deep into the unconscious patterns that have been, sabotaging people's lives for a long time. And what I see so often is men come to me for sexuality, but then I end up more often than not supporting them in their emotional body. And then when their emotional body comes online, then everything else comes online as well. And this is the piece. It's like, to be a multi-orgasmic man means that you have to be able to feel deeply, feel completely, and vibrate your emotional body. Because when you're having sex, when you're making love, they're called nadis, the cords of energy in the body. The same cords of energy that you utilize to express your emotional body are the same cords of energy that you feel a multi-orgasmic state. So if you're a man listening to this and you're, often, ejaculating after 2 or 3 minutes and you can't hold your orgasm, probably you're not very in touch with your emotional body. So you have to get in touch with your emotional body before you're able to actually feel more and hold yourself more completely in the bedroom.
How important is that? I have had men coming to me trying to get like the perfect recipe to become the best lover ever. And it's in the feeling of their true emotion, of their emotional body. How important, I mean, I wish we could just like put that in the Facebook pages, like connect to your emotions in order to be orgasmic, please.
Yes, exactly. And it's like, when a man connects to that, when he connects to that space of, he can access the cosmos, and he can access the muck and the dirt and the mud inside. Like it's a dark journey. And most time when people come on this spiritual journey, it's all about ascending and going up and connecting to the ethers. And part of what I love supporting men and women as well into is connecting this place where we're taking this energy of the authentic self, of God consciousness, and we're dropping it down into the body, and we're feeling it, we're understanding it through the mind, we're expressing it through our throat chakra, we're expressing our purpose and our sense of being in the world, and we're dropping all that energy down into our base and as our sexuality. So we're utilizing sexual energy actually as a healing modality. That's what Tantra is more than anything. And whether, I'm supporting men in a men's immersion or retreat, or it's a co-ed, it's like when sexual energy, and that can happen through self-pleasure, when sexual energy can come online, and then we just give our body full permission to be in the direct experience of what is. Like I find sometimes in my own processing, like even last night, like with all this coronavirus and all this stuff happening, like there's a lot moving on a fear energetic base level. And so just the full permission to Oh, just to feel what's alive. It doesn't need to make sense. And this is a really important piece for men who are listening. When you start to express your emotions, turn off your logical brain that wants to make a sound and a reason and an understanding to why you're crying or why you're angry. It doesn't matter. All you're doing is giving your body a chance to express what you haven't had a chance to express. And what I see more often than not, like every men's immersion workshop, everything I ever do, is it's a waterfall with like a dam in front of it. And the dam's just like slowly opening. And then it's like, whoa, whoa, there's a whole massive amount of just stuff that has never been expressed in a male body. And when they have a safe container, whether in the privacy of their own home or in a workshop space, whatever it is, when you have permission to express that, everything changes.
Yes, oh, I love that so much. And the I think the point of daring to feel deeply these flooding emotions that can totally become part of this multi-orgasmic energy because they have the same nature.
Mm.
Should be just stimuli enough. Should be just should get men ready and brave enough to dare to feel. But many don't know how to start. It has become such a taboo for men. When you speak about vulnerability, and I hear you have worked in the military as well. And I know that that's one of the hardest one because they really teach men to disassociate from their emotions. So how can a man just find the crack to start allowing vulnerability, to start allowing their emotions when there have been layers over layers of taboo and fear and panic about connecting to them?
Yeah, it's a great question. I love how you said that around finding the crack, because that's really what it is. It's like there's this mask of masculinity that men wear, this part of us that is afraid of actually being vulnerable. And yet when we close our eyes and we drop in inside, and if you're listening to this, I'd take a moment just to feel what's underneath that mask. What's underneath that part of you that has been hitting your head against the same brick wall in relationships and recreating the same experience over and over and over and over again? And if you're listening to this, man, and you notice that you've had the same partner say the same thing about you over and over again, there's a chance that she's probably seeing something in you that you're not willing to deeply look at. And so where the crack happens is when you just slow down enough to look at it and to get really honest with yourself. That honesty might be reaching out to a mentor in your life. It might be sending me an email at the end of this and saying, I don't know where to start. I just want to have a 20-minute chat with you, Aaron. I don't know. Or it could be reaching out to mother or father, someone in your life you trust, to just say, hey, I don't know, and something's not working right. Like those 3 words for a man is really hard to say. I don't know, I need some support, because that requires a vulnerability to say, something's not working right here, and I need to let down my guards so that love can actually enter. And that support, when you come in that place and you can actually be authentic, you can actually be real, like the universe just says, okay, I'm here to support you. I'm ready to support you. I'm ready to show up in a way that you can be and allow yourself to feel, and you can be free, and you can be real, and you can be what's underneath it all. And it's not going to change overnight. It's not. These patterns are deeply embedded inside of you. And so the more that the permission you give yourself, because you know inside of anything that you're safe and that you're held. And, we work, both myself and my partner, we work a lot with people that have gone through sexual trauma and emotional trauma and hard trauma and soft trauma. And it's tough because when that trauma is there, the vulnerability is afraid of coming out, because often when the vulnerability came out at a young age, that's when trauma happened in the body. So if you find yourself in that situation and you need support, reach out to someone. It doesn't need to be me. Reach out to someone who you know is going to support you, who you know you can have a session with, who you know that can say, I don't know what to do about this anymore. I need some understanding and I need some feeling. And one of the big things in the way I speak to men is first very cognitively, because a man's mind wants to understand these parameters of the human experience, and the fact that these balanced archetypes are existing inside of our psyche. And when the mind can understand that, then the mind can finally actually begin to let go, and you can begin to let go of the mind. These two simultaneous dances are happening. And in doing that, it gives the body a chance to say, oh, like take a deep breath, and to feel more what's really alive there. And it's never what the challenging thing I see for men is they always want to logically understand what the next step is going to be. Okay, what do I do now, and what do I do here, and what do I do there? And it's okay, like logic is there, and I take men through very logical sequences so that the logic can drop away and the real authentic expression inside the body can be revealed.
I love that. And I love something that you're mentioning about connecting to others, asking for help, because I find that can be particularly challenging when it comes to finding other men and daring to speak their hearts out. It's like relationships between men are not usually that deep. They are more about, they open up when they drink and they try to keep things shallow, and they try not to connect at those deeper layers. But they are so necessary. This brotherhood is so important to create bonds of brotherhood. And in that sense, I love that you are creating this opportunity for men to reach out to you, because sometimes the men that they have around them are all in the same page of trying to disconnect from their emotions. So it's important to connect to a man that can help them back into their hearts. And I love that you're offering this chance, that people can reach you, and that you're offering a program as well for men online. Could you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to speak into one other thing, and I love what you said about, if you look at, and not now because of coronavirus, but if you look at like men going out to the bars, the moment they have a couple of drinks, what happens? That feminine part of them that's like slapping asses and has no inhibitions finally gets a chance to be expressed. So the gateway, and I had a deep relationship with alcohol as well. Like I'm a mariner, and I remember when I finally put down beer years ago and I could actually get in touch with my body, it was liberating. And so what I offer and support men is an 8-week solo one-to-one journey where you get to really take this experience on your own, because a lot of men are afraid to even go to a men's circle. They're afraid to even talk to men about their vulnerabilities. And so I have a conscious man's guide to the bedroom. It's framed at the bedroom about being a better lover, but it takes you into all of these different pieces around the emotional body, understanding what's alive. And it's a self-study. So that now, because we can't go out and, most of us are quarantined, it's a great way to take a journey inside your heart and actually begin to get real with what's underneath it all. And I love the brotherhood that forms in retreats and workshops, and the 6-day initiation journeys I run for men. But I feel that a man often wants to start from a space within himself, because you have to confront some of these parts within you, and it's challenging. So be willing to reach out if you need support. Be willing to send myself a message. Or dive into this course. It's really a good introductory framework for learning some simplicities around Tantra, around the emotional body, around sexuality, around semen retention, all of these things that men want to learn to become a better lover, that's framed in a way that gives the man more of an experience of becoming more whole.
How beautiful. I just hope that more and more men dare to take this step, that this percentage that you were mentioning in the beginning starts increasing. As,
For
as,
sure.
more women are embracing their sacred sexuality, I wish more men start embracing that with that sense of connection, because I have seen a lot of lack of integrity when it's just about wanting to be amazing lovers and they are disconnected from the heart. So I think that the path is, be amazing lovers, but go with your heart as well.
Yeah, because the heart is most deeply connected to the soul. And at the end of the day, we're these bioelectric magnetic beings that have, incarnated, and there's a soul within us, but we have to learn how to master the human experience. And when we master the human experience, then the heart actually is the organ, is the part of us most deeply connected to our soul, our essence, our love. And so as that heart reaches out into the world, everything changes, and we get to actually live a life more deeply on purpose, more connected to our innermost desires, and we get to live, wild and joyful and free, but yet still connected to our tenderness.
I love that. Thank you so much for this amazing conversation. I just want to go on and on and on and on. Because and that's something that I really want to empathize. It's so beautiful when men open their hearts and speak from their hearts and connect to their hearts. So men, don't be afraid. You're not going to become weaker and less attractive, less appealing, and women are not going to reject you thinking that you are, like a wimp or whatever. They are going to adore that in you. They are going to adore that openness, because deep down inside we're craving to be strong as well. It's like when we women see a man that dares to be vulnerable, we dare to be strong.
And we get to, in that dance, love both sides, but not get addicted to either one, and actually hold polarity inside of it too, because there's sexually as well, there's a part of every man, there's a part of every woman that wants to be ravished and consumed and taken, and there's a part of us that wants to ravish and consume and take. So we have to own both of those desires to actually live more in the authentic, integrity of our own being.
Yes. Thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. I have enjoyed it so much, and I hope that everybody enjoys.
You're very welcome. It's been a joy to be here with you.